Le cheval plaît beaucoup, hein. C'est un vecteur de communication extraordinaire.
Avant d'être un cavalier, c'était important d'être un horseman.
Always put the horse before the personal ambitions.
Vraiment un cheval incroyable.
Voilà quelqu'un qui est champion olympique et qui n'est pas ordinaire.
Sans remettre en question, il peut se servir des défaites pour être meilleur après.
Ce feeling, je l'ai eu directement avec Caleb.
On fait du haut niveau, il y a le côté financier, c'est comme ça.
Aller en compétition parce qu'il est bon, pas parce qu'il paye une table.
Moi, je veux pas courir mes chevaux pour l'argent.
If you can do it in a way that doesn't take too much out of your horses.
Quand on voit l'évolution en 10 ans de temps, qu'est-ce que ça va être dans 10 ans?
Pouvoir motiver les jeunes à aller au bout de leurs rêves.
Forme de très très bons compétiteurs. Je ne vais pas dire que ça forme des hommes de chevaux.
Pour moi, les bons moments, ils sont à venir.
Aujourd'hui, réussir sa vie, c'est avoir la vie que l'on souhaite.
Shane Breen is our 86th guest, and Shane not only is one of the best show jumpers from Ireland, but he is a very comprehensive equestrian. Talented rider, dedicated trainer, and genuinely passionate breeder. For the last decades, he has experienced the sport in its very different and complementary facets. We have met and recorded this episode during the Lyon World Cup leg, and we have had the chance to enjoy this long conversation with Shane. In this episode, we talk about pony classes, choices, the direct correlation between how sport has evolved and how the breed of horses has changed and moved over the last decades. For Shane, running breeding operations has now become almost inevitable for riders to get to compete at the highest level. If we had to describe Shane based on the hour conversation we have had with him, we could tell he is a hard worker, a very ambitious and organized sportsman, with a long-term vision and enough curiosity to get involved in side activities. As this often occurs while meeting a new guest, we have been deeply inspired by our conversation with him and really hope you will be too. As always, do not forget to send us private message on Instagram or Facebook to share your thoughts with us after listening to this episode.
This episode with Shane Breen is sponsored by Bombers. As you will hear in the episode, according to Shane, the key to success in equestrian sports and show jumping often rests on very little details. Tiny changes can fundamentally improve the way we ride, compete, and perform. This mostly falls on details such as a better balance, a stronger mind, or even a more suitable bit. Bits. We all know how significant they are in our riding and how we must accurately think and feel when picking up the right one. Today we would like to talk about Bombers bits. Bombers horse bits are entirely handcrafted in their own factory in South Africa. Their philosophy is the following. If pressure equals resistance, then resistance equals lack of control. Here is, in a few and very smart words, how important bits are. To develop their range of bits and foster innovation, they have worked in close collaboration with horses and riders. That is why making those bits by hand is so important. This allows them to adjust, to adapt, and to eventually design the perfect bits that will help riders to better bond with their horse. Every horse is very unique, and picking up the right bit for them is absolutely essential to protect their wellness. You can find the list of worldwide Bombers retailers in their website bombers.co.za and follow them on social media for further info about their philosophy and technology. Well, let's start this episode. We wish you a very pleasant time listening to this conversation with Shane Breen. Hello, Shane. Thank you for being here. We are in Lyon. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to introduce our episode. So you were born in 1974 in Limerick, Ireland. So it's an Irish city located in the southern region of Munster. You are an international show jumper. You started competing at a very young age, and we are going to talk about that, as a pony rider, competing up to Grand Prix with your pony. After a couple of years in the junior national team, you joined the senior team and represented your country at many occasions and at the European and World Championships. You're now based in Hickstead, a very popular facilities in the UK, and you run your own business and stables, Breen Equestrian. So I told you we were going to talk about you from the very beginning. So could you tell us how you started riding at a young age and how was growing up in Ireland?
Yeah, so I started when I was, I think, 4 or 5. So coming from Ireland, Tipperary, we had the pony club and hunting. And I think that's a great foundation for any young person, child to go on the hunting field and go over the natural terrain. I think it's good for your confidence and your balance, and it kind of tests you a little bit in the sense of fear, because you meet some of these challenging hedges and rivers and walls, so the variation is huge. So I did that with my father, brother and sister. My mother, she wasn't so horsey. She loves the horses, but she never rode. So I did that with my siblings, my uncle and my father. And then we got into the show jumping, and I had a very good little 12-2 pony called Skellig Lady, which we bought in a fair in Ballinasloe. So I was with my dad when we bought her, so that was kind of exciting to pick out your first pony, and then you go to the shows, and it doesn't even matter if she's not a superstar, she's a star in your eyes. So you just have a bond with that pony. And then it went from that to a 13-2 called Pewter, and he was amazing. And then 14-2s, I had a pony. Again, I went with my father. He was called Arctic Sprat, and he was interesting. He had a lot of blood. He was nearly like a thoroughbred, but he and I clicked quite well, and we won the championship at the RDS, and he won the national championship in Navan, which was 2 great achievements. And alongside him, I was very, very fortunate to get Mr. Boogie. And Mr. Boogie in Ireland was a legend. He had done many Europeans. I think he did his first one with Peter Smith. He won a silver medal. He'd medals draped all over him. It was unbelievable to get the ride on him. And I got him. He'd had an infection in his eye, and they had to remove the eye. So it was his first year without. And it was interesting. He had kind of lost his confidence a little bit. And then I took over the ride, and I was at home, and he was very unsure about jumping the jumps. And, you know, we all kind of ride and their heads are straight and everything is correct. And he kept stopping. So then I was walking around and my reins were a bit loose, and I noticed that he turned his head a bit sideways. I thought, oh. So then I jumped a few jumps and he was perfect. I just left his head out, he turned sideways, and he got his vision again. And we did 28 competitions, and he won 23 of them. And he was silver medal at the Europeans. Marlon Bayard Johnson beat me. He was sensational pony. And I think then I got the bug after, you know, having won Dublin and won a Europeans. And Dublin was quite special because when I was a kid, sitting there in the stand with my parents, and we watched the Aga Khan one day, and I remember Eddie Macken, he jumped a clear round, and as a kid when you're 8 or 9 you think, wow, I just want to do that. And then, you know, you win with your pony, and then Dublin has been a very, very lucky place for me, having jumped double clears in the Aga Khan and won the Grand Prix. And so it's kind of, I suppose, in many ways like living your dream. But, you know, going back to the ponies, it went then from ponies to the juniors, and I had a very good horse from a friend, Jimmy Flynn, who had Heather Honey with Paul Dara, and he'd Heather Blaze with Robert Splain, and I had Diamond Heather, and she was 7 years old, and we went to the Europeans, and we just missed out on a medal. We finished 4th. And then we went to the Young Riders, and my uncles, my family, they bought me an amazing horse off of Max Howry called Macho Man. originally came from Ireland, actually came from Tipperary, really, and brought him back from Switzerland, and he was, like, he gave me my first taste of senior international jumping. We did the Young Rider Europeans. He unfortunately was slightly lame before the final. He'd put up a little bit of a leg, which meant I had to withdraw from the final, and that was devastating because I was sitting in pole position, so that was a bit of a blow. But you know, you think of the welfare of the horse, so we withdrew, and then we went on to jump on senior Nation Cup teams, and that was my first time to get to Hickstead. Tommy Wade was chef de keep, and Tommy was kind of a mentor to me. He was a neighbour. He was a legend with the little pony called Dundrum. And I was, I think, 15, because Tommy then trained some racehorses. So I tried a little bit of racing, and then that was another interesting evening. I had to make a decision whether I would be a race jockey or a show jumper. We had some owners, and Dad said, you gotta decide like what you're doing. So Tommy Wade called into the house, and I said to Tommy, you know, what do you think? What should I do? He said, I can't answer the question for you, but I can advise you in that. And he said, if you go show jumping, he says, you have the ability and the talent, but you got to find the horses and the owners. And if you go racing, you will be very lucky if you don't break every bone in your body. So I thought, ouch, that's not so pleasant. And I made my decision to go show jumping, and that was that.
Could you tell us about you and describe your personality, Shane? I have read an interview given by your student, Georgia Tame, in which he declared, what I have really learned while I've been with Shane is the value of hard work. Is this what best describes you?
I would say yes. I think I'm very honest, very focused. When I get an idea about something, I like to follow it and see it through. Quite passionate. And I do honestly believe no matter what you do, without dedication and hard work, you're not going to achieve your goals and aspire to the person whom you can be. So I think to sum it up, yes, I think a bit of hard work never killed anyone.
So you told us about the past, the young you, building up his career to be where you are today, part of the national team, riding the Nations Cup and being very successful in the international scene. You now run a huge business. You do riding, you do training, selling, and now breeding. Can you tell us how each of these branches work for you? Are they functioning on an independent basis, or are they interconnected, for you? Is this your system that's all based on mixing everything that you can to be successful in the ring?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So we have the show jumping career. I have my family, 4 young kids, and my wife who all ride and compete. And then we have the breeding operation with the stud and everything. So it is all linked together, but also they run on their own merit, on their own feet. And I think that's important that they do, that one doesn't prop up the other, that they're linked, but they're individual. And they're, with the training side of things, I enjoy teaching and helping people and giving time to that, but sometimes it's difficult when you've so many shows and so many other things going on to devote all your time to it. But I'm fortunate that I have very good staff and colleagues that some of our clients, they trust them, and we kind of all speak together. So then if I can't go to a show, one of my colleagues can go and help that person, and I can look at the videos, and if I see something and they have a class again tomorrow, you might give a pointer or something. So it that side of it works good. Then the breeding is a bit of a a passion for me. I love looking at foals, and I love the excitement of mixing families and seeing how you can improve the breed, and you take a great father and a great mother from the sport, and a sibling down from that. You mix and match a little bit, and you go back, second, third generation, and see where the best combinations are. And I find it very interesting that you can see that some sires' daughters are excellent mothers. It's just fascinating, It's not that you breed a superstar, that the brother or the sister are going to be a superstar. They're all complete individuals. And that's why I think as breeders we end up getting a little bit bigger than we actually planned, because it is power in numbers, I suppose, because they're not all going to be superstars, but they all have a job in life, whether it be eventing, dressage, jumping, hunting. There is a job for all of them. For me, I love to sell them. I love to buy them. I love to sell them, and then for the person who buys them, that it goes to the right person. And then you watch them and follow their career, and it's lovely to get the feedback from the person who has it, and that they're super happy, and that animal can reach the targets that its rider sets out for it. It's a wonderful sport that we're in, and we'll sit down tonight and watch the Grand Prix, and Sunday the World Cup, but they're probably the two main classes. But to sit down and watch even the pony, the children riding and everything, and they're the foundation, and to follow it through from pony riders up to Grand Prix World Cup riders, and it's just fascinating, and how the sport has evolved, and that is reflected in the breeding. If you ask some people, they would say the horse they had 30 years ago possibly wouldn't be the horse today because of the courses, the technicality and the lightness and one thing and another. But then there are some other riders that would say the horse 30 years ago would be as good today, which is great. But when we look at the courses and the time allowed and the technicality and the how light the material is and everything, and that reflects in the breeding as well. So the horses have got a little bit lighter, a bit more blood. Some of them, they're not all superstars, but some of them, they're so smart now. It's how the sport has developed, the breeding, the breed of the horse has developed. And I think that's why it goes hand in hand. The horses, I personally think, have excelled, and the courses and the course designers have also excelled and made it a bit more difficult. And, I as a professional rider, every show I would go to, I would turn around to other riders, whether it's Peter Fredriksson or Marcus Enning or Luca Beerbaum or Scott Brash, anybody, and you will discuss a course, and we're all in it to beat one another, but we're also there to listen and to learn and take advice. It's very interesting when you look at other professionals and fellow colleagues that you can sit down and talk, and they can say something about how you are riding a particular horse, and it might be just a tiny little tweak, and it can make such a difference. And that's how technical and how great the sport is nowadays.
You just say that the sport has evolved a lot, and the cost of horses has kept increasing over and over. Do you think also that riders will have to invest into breeding to be able to provide their team with top-level horses?
Yeah, interesting. So I think a lot of federations have looked at the prospect of going and securing a number of 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. And I personally think this is a system and a format that I'm surprised it hasn't been developed and tested a bit more, because I think it should work. If we look at the top Grand Prix horses today, or even go just one step back and look at the 7 or 8 year olds and 9-year-olds, and if you're looking to go and buy one of those for your Grand Prix horse, or look at Paris Olympics in 2 years' time, and you want to go and buy the best 8-year-old now so that you're ready for Paris, you probably, unless you have a big purse, you can't buy that horse. The person who has the horse is living the dream anyway. They want to go to Paris, to the Olympics, so you can't buy it. So that again falls back to the breeding, and you almost nearly have to breed your championship horse now. I think it would be, and it has been spoken about, even in Ireland years ago, they spoke about buying like 3-year-olds, but buying about 10 of them, and maybe select either 5 riders or 10 riders and give 1 to each or 2 to each.
You're talking about the federation investing in those horses. It's not from private people or private holdings.
It was spoken years ago about federation, so it can be a federation, or it can be, I have spoken to some colleagues, and we've even spoken about buying the best 3 to 5-year-olds, pooling them together and giving them to riders who produce the younger horses, and then take over the ride on them when they're 7 or 8-year-olds, so that then they're your next championship horse. I personally think it's a system that can certainly work. I suppose, if you like, because of the breeding I'm kind of doing it single-handedly, if you like. And that is actually the target. The end goal is that that people will come looking for their championship horse, and that hopefully I would have it. And I started this year, I did an auction, Breen Equestrian auction, a hybrid one. So it was online and it was live. And it was very interesting to do that. And it was interesting, like some of the customers who bought them, I didn't quite know them before the auction. So that was quite interesting for me, that you realise there is a bigger following out there as well. I'm going to continue with doing the auctions because I have quite a few horses. But it's not that I want to run the auctions just to sell horses. I want to run the auction to sell really, really good horses and watch them be produced and watch them excel and become some of the best in the world.
I'm surprised listening to you that you're saying that you breed, so you have 85 mares, I guess, in the breeding center and everything. You breed them to be able to watch them perform, but why don't you breed them to be able to ride them and to find your Olympic horse, for example?
Yeah, well, I am, but I can't ride them all. Yeah. So, and I have colossal bills, so I have to sell them to keep the whole thing going. Yes, I would obviously love to breed one and have it myself to ride at the Olympics or any championship or any 5-star Grand Prix in the world. And yes, I'd like to be on one myself, and I'd like to have a bunch more in the competition as well. And if I get beaten by one of my own, great, so be it. At least the client is happy.
Talking about the evolution of sport, we also have to talk about the rising number of competitions and the significant place of money. You are riding in a team in the Global Champions Tour. This year you are part of the Rome Gladiators. What do you think about this circuit? Do you believe that this kind of events drives us toward an even more elitist sport?
I think it does. I think the Global Champions Tour, Global Champions League, founded by Jan Tops, I think it really gave show jumping another boost. And I personally think it has been great for show jumping. It has made it very global, which was the idea of it. And it has made it that these great horses, they do have a big schedule with the GCT and with Nations Cup duties and with championships. There is a lot of pressure on the horses, the owners, and that's why there is so much money in there now, that these horses, they are kind of elitists and they have an incredible value. The prize money is incredible, like with Longines and with Rolex. And, you know, if we look at some of the top horses, they're winning millions. And in their career, it's incredible the sums of money that they can gather up. And as riders, you know, you have the Rolex Grand Slam as well. And, you know, you have all these also leagues, rider leagues as well, which are, there are big pots of money at the end of it. So I think overall, the sponsorship seems to be quite forthcoming. I think show jumping is an attractive sport. It has attracted sponsors, it has attracted investors, owners. So when we look at the big picture and the future of show jumping, I think it's very, very bright. It's a very healthy sport.
You're one of the Irish riders that very often represents the team. So when you build up the career of a horse, you have to deal with the fact that you want to have this horse win money and everything, because you have also to keep investing in your career. You also have to deal with the fact that this horse cannot be every week at every show if you want to be, for example, selected for a specific championships. How do you balance, how do you think of the training program of a horse, the competition program of a horse, jungling with all these factors?
For me, you have a plan that you have to look at day by day, month by month, but you have a plan A and you have a team of horses. So you have your probably 2, if you're fortunate, or 3 that can jump your Grand Prix. And then you have the ones that follow behind them, which are maybe the ones that are going to replace them, but you have a backup team. So you're trying to plan your year that you have targets for each individual. So for me, one of the most important things is to jump for your country. There's no better buzz than that. And I know we love to jump for the big prize money and the whole lot, but at the end of the day, to represent your country and have your nation behind you is the best feeling of all. So you always want to keep your big guns for those big days for your country. And there is probably, for those, shall we say, superstar horses, I believe there's probably 12 to 14 shows a year for them. So that would be, you probably would have 5 or 6 big goals, big targets. And then you have, you know, they need a build up to a show and things like that. So if you count that many shows and X amount of rounds, and then you tot it all up into percentages of how many warm-up jumps, because when you have a routine with your horse, you have basically the same routine, you do the same amount of jumps in the warm-up, and then you have, so if you totted it up in the year, you can work out how many times that horse will jump at a show. And then you have the build-up at home and the training and the gymnastics. So it's then a relationship with your vet and having the knowledge of your horse health-wise, how his legs are, and really having all the knowledge you can possibly have. And then have your work plan around that. So then you develop just a one big system, and you have your plan, and everything fits into that. And then when that works well, you increase the lifespan of the horse's sport. And that for me is very important, to have all those facts and figures.
You say that, and we talk about it with a lot of our guests. Sports has evolved crazily over the last year. What did you do to keep updated? You know, to follow the same path as sports, to always be on the top of the sport. How do we improve to adjust?
I think when we look around today, it's so professional nowadays. Like, from the grooms who look after the horses, the riders, it's meticulous. And the grooms are wonderful who look after the horses. Like, they devote their lives. The horses are like their children. And I think it's important for the sport going forward as well that we give to the public a kind of behind the scenes, like even what we're doing now, I think is very important. And that is, I think, why you've so many followers, because they love to listen to the riders. They want to hear about where they've come from, their day to day. I think it's when we're at the shows, people love if they can go behind the arena, go to the stables, meet these personalities. And I think for the sport to grow more, we have to give to the public, and we have to let the public meet these superstar horses and speak to even the grooms, and that they know about the habits of the horses and everything like that. And then you get a bigger following, and you get more and more people doing it. Like, we're speaking about the kind of elite side of it, but I think the amateur side of it has grown massively. You know, they want to go behind the scenes with us because they want to try and improve. And for them to improve, they have to listen to us, and they have to see and watch. And I think a lot of the shows now where the people can be close to the warm-up as well, it's educational for them, for the younger people, to watch how professionals warm up. It's shows like here in Lyon, when you walk around, you could get lost here with so many trade stands, so many public come in, and it's very warm, it's welcoming. You can stand by the warm-up and you can watch the riders warm up. You can follow them, watch them in the ring. It's all of that, I think, is very important for the future of show jumping. We have to have a following, and to have a following, we have to give back to them. We can't just hide away. We have to speak, we have to meet people, and we have to discuss these topics. And at the end, it's a sport that, you know, it's not for everybody, because not everybody, if you're in the city, can have a horse. You can't have it in the back garden. But if you're really, really keen to have the horse, you can put them in centres. But, you know, it's a big effort for that person. You know, it's time consuming, and it's a lot of effort. A lot of those people, they are prepared to do that. So I think when you see them making the effort, it's nice to let them in on our side of it as well, and let them see that it's not impossible. It goes back to, I suppose, the first thing we spoke about. Yes, it is a bit of hard work, and it is about getting that special bond and friendship with your horse. And yeah, you can go and have loads of fun. It's not that you have to jump the World Cup on Sunday, but you can go to your local shows, and it's unbelievable fun. Your family, friends, everybody comes along, and I think it goes back to grassroots, and we got to bring everybody with us and embrace it, because it is a wonderful sport.
What I'm going to talk about is just the wide continuity of what you were talking about. But are you sometimes afraid that horse riding, show jumping might at some point be restricted or prohibited from the Olympics, but also like in the general, world, as we can see people and communities or associations trying to prohibit the sports, like the use of animals and horses for sports and for work?
I think absolutely not with show jumping, because let's go from a rider's perspective. We have, if you wish, air jackets. If you do fall off your horse, there is every precaution there. Your helmet is on your head. You have body protectors that are like a vest that inflate if you fall off. So you're very well protected from that point of view. And then from the animal's point of view, the care and attention, as we said, going from the breeder to the groom to the rider. And then we have all the equipment. We have tendon boots on them. We have fetlock boots on them. We have the correctly fitted saddles so that they fit their backs correctly. They have absolute comfort in what they're wearing. And when they go in the ring, the footing is fantastic. Like all these surfaces are tried and tested and in the welfare of the horse. And the jumps, The poles are super light now. That's, as we spoke earlier, the horses, they have to be blood, because if you just touch one of these poles, they will fall. They're so light. The cups are super flat. We have safety cups. So from a health and safety point of view, I think show jumping is absolutely perfect.
Another topic, Shane. You have trained a numerous bunch of great riders, such as Jake Ryan or Georgia Tame. You also ride with the French rider Nina Malvet in the Rome Gladiators teams. What do you think of this upcoming generation of great pilots? Do you believe that our sport turns to become much professionalized?
That's interesting. Like on the Rome Gladiators team, it's owned by Mark and Tara Ryan, and they're lovely people, great to ride for them. And Nina's on that team, as is Edward Levy, two French riders, and they're awesome talents, super. And if we look at the Irish, when I moved to Hickstead, Douglas Bunn called it Mixstead because so many Irish people came with me. But great talents, like, as you say, Georgia and Jack Ryan, David Simpson, Michael Duffy. There's my brother has come over, Trevor Breen, and Brian Cassidy. There's a bunch of us around there. But even to go the next generation down, and if we look at the ponies European Championships this year, the Irish were incredible there. But if we look at those kids, and not just the Irish, but all of them, but I think if we look for where they come from, I think, speaking from the Irish point of view, a lot of those kids that won the gold medal this year, and then individually gold, silver, bronze, and I think they were fifth as well. And I jumped with a lot of those kids, their parents. I jumped with their parents, and they were extremely talented riders. So they give that knowledge and experience that they've had to those kids. I think it goes a little bit back to hunting. I know all of those kids, they all go on the hunting field, and they're just, to sum it up in a word, they're horsemen. They just have an incredible feel, they have an incredible instinct, and they're always with the animal. And then outside of Ireland, I watched the pony class this morning there at 8 o'clock, and in the UK and everywhere there are some great kids to ride. So I think that the riders and how the sport is, that it's actually getting better. And I don't mean to be rude to the people, us oldies, and the riders gone. But, you know, I think it's horsemanship, but there's a style, and these kids, they're intelligent. They watch these other riders, like, you know, Daniel Deuser is a great example of a rider, like an incredible rider. And Julian Eppelard, a different style, but like an absolute winning machine. Like, there's no man faster on a horse with so much style and finesse. And these young kids, they're watching it, and they all they aspire to is beat Julian Eppelard, beat Daniel Deuser, beat Peter Fredriksson, and that's what it's all about. And, you know, and those names I just said, and like Ben Mayer, Scott Brash, those kids that we're talking about, they can go over to those guys and speak to them, and everybody is open and happy to talk about or to help or to give advice or just a little thing, just say a little thing. And every little thing can make an impression in your mind. And so, yeah, I think the younger kids are even better than us now.
Do you still have 5 minutes for us?
Yes.
We still have a couple of questions, 2 questions, I think. But you were being perfect, because I wanted to talk about hunting, and you just perfectly introduced the topic. We know that Ireland and the UK have one specific common denominator, hunting, and a lot of riders from those nations started riding while hunting. And I also read that as of today, you still use hunting when you want to improve, for example, the bravery of horses. When we think of Irish show jumpers, British show jumpers, we think of Bertram, Allen, Harry Charles, and all these young guys. Do you think that hunting is shaping the way you ride, or is it something you learn? Like, you seem all to be very fast-forward riders, competitive in the speed classes.
Interesting. Actually, when you mentioned Bertram Allen, the first time I ever saw him was in the hunting field in Wexford. And I was riding beside Michael Condon. And I said to Michael, who's that little kid on the little white pony there? And I think Bertram would have been about 10 or 11 at the time. And Michael said to me, oh, that's young Bert Allen's son, Bertram. And I went, my God, he can ride. And he said, oh yeah, he's a good little kid. And then we were later on in the evening and we came to this very, very big bank. And Michael jumped out and I jumped out. And I thought, wow, that was a big bank. And I just looked back. And there's the little Bertram Allen coming out on this little white pony, and I thought, bloody hell. and then, yeah, Bertram Allen, yeah. So, but I think, yes, the hunting helps, but it is a slightly different style, jumping banks and ditches and into rivers and doing all that, compared to the art and the style and the skill of show jumping. But it does go a little bit hand in hand with horsemanship, where you get that understanding and you get the courage yourself that you can inspire a horse to give more, and that you can give the horse the confidence not to fear. And horses instinctively can feel that from a rider. I think one of the greatest people I've ever seen to do that is Paul Carberry. He's a national hunt jockey who won the Grand National and everything. He's a great friend. And he is an incredible horseman. Like, if a horse thinks that's impossible to do, in 30 seconds, Paul can give it the confidence that it's actually quite easy to do, and the horse just does it. And, I think that's a bit unique in a person that can inspire a horse to do that. And he did it on the race course so many times, with so many horses, and that might be condemned as a bad jumper, and had given riders some falls, and Paul would see it as a challenge to win with that horse. Not even to win, just that the horse would have a clear round on the race course, and he did it time and time again. And you see a range, like you see Bertram Allen out hunting, you see Paul Carberry out hunting, and you see, when Peter Fredrickson came with me last year, you see him out hunting, and it's beautiful to watch. And it doesn't matter what obstacle they meet, they just glide over it perfectly. And then you see them in the arena, jumping the World Cups, the Olympics, everything, and it's just perfect.
Last one topic, Shane, I think. In an interview on Clip My Horse, you said that your success was due to your family and a family effort. So you have 4 kids and a wife, Chloe. How do you manage your career and your life? Have you found the right balance between family time and sport?
Yeah, the one answer to that would be Chloe.
Yeah. Okay.
It is difficult, but Chloe keeps me in check, and you do have to be mindful of your kids, and it's very, they grow up so fast, and you don't want to miss it, and you have to be mindful of that. And Chloe is wonderful that she keeps me in check. I love spending time with the kids. Like Wolfie, he's 8, he's doing his first Little Nations Cup today in Southview. I was there for the Wednesday and yesterday morning, and that's just a great, he's so excited, and we all are. And it's wonderful to watch the kids and the buzz they get out of riding the ponies and jumping, and even they come over to the farm with me and they pick out a foal, and I give them a leg and a foal and this and that, and it's a great interest for them, and then they watch it develop and they break it in and they ride it for the first time, and it's amazing for them. And then it's family is so important to have around you for support and everything. And my brother Trevor and his wife Caroline live down the road, and then my sister is in Ireland and she does a bit of hunting, and my dad is at our home place in Ireland, and he's 78 and he's told me he's going hunting again this year, which is amazing. And then, you know, we have Breen Equestrian, we have some amazing owners around us that really support what we do and enjoy not just my success or anything, but they love the kids, their success, and very fortunate with Team Z7 with Sheikha Mehta. She's an incredible owner. She totally trusts my plan with the horses. I go through a plan with her, and once we're all on the same page, we run with it, and it's worked out amazingly. And Sheikha Mehta has trusted Breen Equestrian with all of her half-breds, with the breeding side of it, and it's really, really coming good now. We've some very, very nice young horses coming on board, so that's super exciting. Yeah, it's there's so many factors to the whole thing, and everybody gets along so well. I have another owner, Prince Torquay. He also has quite a big stud in the UK. It's called Old Lodge. It's in the New Forest, and big breeding operation. And you know, it's interesting to speak to the likes of Prince Torquay, Sheikha Mehta, who are also breeding a lot of show jumpers as well. And you know, it's the same. We all have the same views and the same ideas and the same goals, and it's not that we have to keep them all ourselves. It's lovely to watch other people enjoy what we're trying to produce, which is most important.
Thanks a million, Shane, for such an inspiring conversation. We wish you all the best for the classes here in Lyon, and wish to see you in the national team very soon again.
Thank you.